Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Just gonna wait a few minutes. I can see lots of participants are joining now. If you could tell me in the chat option if you can see my slides, they should be in the background. Just double checking everything is working. Excellent, thank you. Perfect, thank you. That's great. Okay, just gonna wait a few minutes. You can see the bar on the top of my screen. As you can see, those numbers are going up, so it's always good to wait at least 1 minute for everyone to join in before I introduce my session. And I'm going to tell you a few words about myself, and then I'm going to start presenting different ideas. Bonjour, excellent, thanks. Hello, Stephanie. Yeah, if you could feel free to use the chat option to tell me where you're watching this session from. I ran a session at 10:15 this morning. It was great, absolutely amazing to see an amazing spread of all kind of locations: India, Poland, Australia. It's absolutely unbelievable. Abu Dhabi, from how many places people are watching, and I can already see there is Barcelona and France and the UK, different parts of the UK. Oh, okay. Hi, Heidi. Nice to see you back. I guess Romania. Where about in Romania? Slovakia. Wow. Edinburgh, France. Okay. Wow. Australia, Slovenia. This is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And London. I'm presenting my session from sunny London today. Peru. Wow. I don't think I had anyone from South America in my first session today. Pozdrowienia, Sydney. Oh, hi, Abdullah. That's again London, but from Italy. Great. So I have to say that, see, I told you, it's just amazing to see how many different locations we are appearing today. Gdańsk, Bristol. It's great. Just to let you know, I'm not going to be controlling the chat option during my presentation because it is it always takes my attention away, but I'm going to revisit it at the very end of my presentation. So I can see there are 60 of us so far, and probably there will be more participants joining in the next few minutes, but I'm going to start my presentation now. So thanks for your hellos and letting me know that the slides are visible. So I'm gonna close the chat option now. And my session today is about discussing and presenting some ideas of how you can engage your students in using the target language and how to make them speak in lessons, obviously in the target language. Usually they are very keen to speak anyway. My name is Witold Woźniak. I'm a lead practitioner. Just a few words about myself. If you did enjoy my first session earlier today, just clicking, I don't know why that never moves to the second slide, but once it goes, it should be fine. Sorry. Here we go. So my session is about make speaking great again. So why just let me see if I didn't, okay, perfect. Why the target language matters. First of all, it's practical application of the language they've learned already, and it's promoting a more comprehensive understanding. When we speak, we also listen. And if you listen, we're able to respond. So if this practical application isn't happening, you know, when they write things, there isn't any interaction. You write. But by making them speak, we are promoting an active, a real usage of the language. So obviously we are promoting communication skills, which also it's a very important confidence factor. Why I'm saying about that? Well, let me give you an example. When I arrived to London over 20 years ago, And when I had to make a phone call, I didn't have a mobile phone back then, or maybe, yeah, no. I find it very stressful because when you talk to someone without seeing someone's face, someone's gesture, it was very difficult to be able to hear and actually have a conversation, especially when you don't feel very confident with your use of the language. So confidence factor is very important because it is always stressful to speak in a different language, especially the one you don't master. So I think giving 5-10 minutes every lesson to boost this confidence is very important. Obviously, that helps with fluency development, cultural integration. So sometimes also maybe explaining certain nuances, expressions. So I specialize in French and Italian, and very often my students, for instance, they say that when they describe the weather, they say c'est chaud. And I say c'est chaud has a very different meaning. It doesn't mean it's hot. I know in English you say weather is hot, but actually weather is done in French. So you say il fait chaud. When you say c'est chaud, it sounds very, very different and the meaning changes. Obviously encourages active participation. I know that very often this active participation, maybe in primary, students are very, very keen to participate, but in secondary or maybe when you teach GCSE, actually it's difficult to motivate your students to speak. So cold calling, where you say no hands up, I'm gonna be selecting names, and you can use different system to encourage your students. And if your student doesn't know what to say, I give them the answer and ask them to repeat it, so they still speak. Okay, it helps with real-life situations, listening comprehension, vocabulary expansion, overcoming language anxiety, and finally, it's a great grammar practice. So those are my reasons why I decided to talk about the use of the target language in my lesson today. So a little bit about myself. I'm a lead practitioner. I teach in primary because I work in an academy trust. So one afternoon a week, I teach in a primary, year 3 up to year 6. So 7 to 11 years old, and then I'm teaching secondary, including GCSE. I'm a head of French in my school. I'm a mentor to newly qualified teachers. I mark for AQA speaking and writing exams, and I'm part of the local primary languages network. And even though I'm bold, I have lots of many hats in my school, including running Jack Patchy, DOV, Erasmus Plus, and staff well-being and surveys. So that keeps me busy. But on the top of that, I love donuts, love Krispy Kremes, I love Starbucks, eggnog latte especially, and I love fitness. I like running, especially long distance running. Have my fitness page on Instagram, Vita Voss Fitness. So if anyone wants to keep active, you want to see some stimulating ideas for using the fitness target language, also feel free to have a look. I did present sessions in the previous years during the language conference, and I wrote some articles. And currently I'm working on this book, which is called Illuminating Pathways, A Journey to Becoming a Successful, Happy, and Reflective Teacher. That's going to come out next year. Why I'm telling you that? Because on my Facebook page, if you want to keep in touch or if you have any questions, I created this Facebook page called Think, Teach, Thrive, where I publish some articles, I publish some ideas, and also there are some presentations from the previous years. And also there are ideas for retrieval practice I was presenting earlier today. So if you want to read it, or if you want to see some ideas on this page, I publish things that I usually present during events like that, or if I work on my book, sometimes I publish a chapter, so you can have a look, and you can ask me questions or ask for ideas. I'm happy to get engaged in any conversations. So moving on to use of the target language. So the first activity I'm going to talk about is Magic Pencil. So Magic Pencil, it's a great activity whether you teach in primary or secondary. So really you don't use a pencil, but sometimes they can be using a pen. Obviously they don't open it. And what you do, you pair up students, you display some words on the board. So let's imagine they are learning numbers, and let's say numbers from 1 to 20. And those numbers are displayed on the board. And now you're going to write a number on your partner's back. So let's say I'm writing, let's say 4, And when my partner is gonna feel, you have to think what number I'm feeling on my back. I know it can be quite ticklish, but that's where they enjoy also, this interactive element of the game. They have to name it in French or in the target language. So it's great because they take turns once you guess the number. And even if they don't guess the number, they say many other numbers. So they really, if they think it wasn't quatre, but it was sept, they actually say many different numbers before they get to quatre. If you want to make it more advanced, let's say maybe at key stage 3 or key stage 4, you can display words. So you can display, let's say, 20 keywords, and what they have to do, they're gonna write letters, they're gonna spell it on someone's back in big capital letters, and they have to think and visualize the spelling. So it's a really good thing because it makes them think about spellings, about the meaning of the word, but also at the very end, they have to say it in French. So it's a good recap on what they learned, element of fun which they love, and practicing spellings and speakings. Find Mickey. It's one of my favorite games because my students absolutely adore it. And it doesn't matter if it's a primary or secondary school, they just love it. So we nominate one person to leave the class. And when this person comes back, we give this person 40 seconds and 7 chances to find who is Mickey. Mickey is someone who gives a different answer from anyone else. So let's imagine in the target language, perhaps your students have to ask, when is your birthday? And everyone is giving the real answer, but Mickey is going to say, je ne sais pas, or whatever you're going to decide. And this person who gives a different answer needs to be found. So for instance, could be even a self-introduction. So they can be asking, what's your name? Comment tu t'appelles? Everyone is saying the real name, je m'appelle, but Mickey, of course, going to say, je m'appelle Mickey. So the good thing is that someone who leaves the class is asking questions, and the rest of the class, they are giving answers. All you do, you just watch and listen, and you only direct the student because I always say you have only 40 seconds, so it's not thinking who you're gonna ask next, you go straight to the person, you stand in front of another student and you ask it. They absolutely adore it. We always play 3, 4, 5 rounds because they just like the interaction and this element of guessing who is Mickey. Mexican wave, classic, where students have to say follow the pattern. So whether it's gonna be practicing telling the time. So if I say il est 1h, it's 1 o'clock, second person is gonna say il est 12h, il est 3h, il est 4h, il est 5h, up to 12, and then from 12 you start to 1. What you can make it more challenging by timing it and saying, okay, there are 30 of us here. So we should all do it in 60 seconds. Let's see if you can do it in 60 seconds, or let's see if you can do it under 60 seconds. So obviously, with the second round, they're going to realize what they're going to say. So it's more rehearsed, but it's still reinforcing listening and knowing what needs to be said. So it's a good speaking activity, and that can be applied for days of the week, for months, for naming snacks, for ordering something. So I remember a few years ago, we played this Mexican wave and everyone had to order something. So students were just saying a sentence, I would like something, please. So they were saying, I don't know, je voudrais une pomme, s'il vous plaît. And the next person had to say something different. Great. The next one is retrieval of existing language. I used this slide for retrieval practice in my previous session. I think there are just a few slides that I recycled, but I thought this is also really good for make our students think and speak. So this time we're not inviting students to actually write too much. We just give them end of the sentence, we read it to them or make them read it, and they have to come up how the sentence could start. So whether they're gonna say il y a, ou j'ai, ou il a, ou nous avons, it's up to them. The same here, they have to finish off the sentence. So you give them a sentence, for instance, j'aime, and they have to give something that follows that makes sense. And again, you can apply different systems in place where either you go through one row or you say no hands up and randomly you select students. I'm going to select 5 of you, 10 seconds thinking time. You have to finish off the sentence. Dans ma ville, il y a, and Agnes, go. And this way, everyone has to be thinking, because the thing is, if you're going to say, okay, Johnny, you're going to tell me, finish off the sentence, you have 5 seconds to think, the rest of the class are not engaged. because you said John is gonna give the answer, so it's a holiday for the rest. But if you're gonna say 5-10 seconds thinking time, I'm gonna ask 5 of you to finish off the sentence, everyone's gonna be engaged, and obviously we're getting some language back. Here, they have to change one thing where they repeat the full sentence, so they are practicing the reading and speaking, but they have to change only one selected part of the sentence. So you're also checking if they can apply different verbs. You can make it more challenging. You can, obviously highlight more section of the sentence depending on your class. Fill in the gaps. That's a good reading and speaking practice where you display something familiar, something students wrote already, whether it was during their retrieval practice or maybe in lesson. But this time you display it in 2 different colors. As you can see, every second sentence in a different color. So one partner is blue and one partner is reading the text in black. And so they're taking turns. But as you can see, some of those words are also in English. So there's a double practice. It's reading and speaking, but also recapping vocabulary or maybe some grammatical structures. So it's a good practice and checking if they feel confident. And once they practice it with the partner, what you can do, you can select 2 partners that didn't work together. So then you can say, Johnny, I don't know why I'm picking up on Johnny today. So Johnny, you are reading the blue text, and Monica, you're reading the blue one. So again, everyone and no one knows who's going to be working with whom next. So there's lots of speaking, lots of practice on that. That's a more advanced practice where after maybe practicing this slide, you give them some time and to read it again, but this time completing with expressions they remember or maybe they would apply. Vocabulary races, it's another game which you can apply in your class where students write in groups as many related words as possible within a time limit related to a topic. The thing is, if they work in groups, smaller groups, I wouldn't encourage groups of 8 or 10, but we're talking maybe groups 3, 4, 5 max. When they have to write it down, so they are practicing the spelling, actually they have to say it. So you are encouraging your students to say words before they write it. So it's a little bit of speaking, but also writing. And then also you kind of check if they know how to spell it, or can they help each other within a group or use notes. Another one is grammar races, so that can be applied to grammar, where they have to quickly write correct sentences following specific grammar rules. So let's say you are explaining how the future tense is formed. So always, for instance, when I teach French, I say when you introduce futur simple, for instance, there is no future tense in French without the letter R. So if in every single verb in French, you have R, because after the R, you're going to apply the ending. So I always tell my students, you have no R, you have no future tense. So once they wrote a sentence, whether it's on whiteboards or in the books, they have to read it out. So yes, I know it's a spelling or kind of grammar practice, but they're gonna read it out. So we are pushing for the target language by making sure that what is written is also said and repeated many times. Speed friendling, that's where students have a limited time to introduce themselves to several classmates in French, German, Spanish, or whichever language you teach. And that could be a good start or plenary activity where, let's say, you were teaching how to, I don't know, say someone's name, describe hair or eyes, and now they have to say those 3 sentences, and they have 2 minutes. To how many students can they say it? Are they hesitant? Are they confident? Are they more confident next lesson? And they enjoy those kind of interactions. Now I'm gonna show you one website, one item that I really use often in lessons, especially with my GCSE classes, because I don't know if that's your experience, but I find that the older they are, the more afraid of making mistakes they are, and or maybe it's just not very cool to put your hands up when you are 15 or 16 and be very keen to participate in lessons. I'm noticing that, so I'm applying different strategies to actually make them speak or make them read, because when it comes to reading, sometimes they read, but the way they read for me not to be able to hear it. So they're very shy, or they just do everything not to read. So this is the answer. I found it very successful. So let me quickly show you. It's got a spreader. When you go to the website, it's free. You can type in a text. I've done it already in preparation to the session, but I'm going to show you later how it works. You have settings where you can select, let me show you, you can select how many words per minute you want the spreader to be displaying your text. So you can save it. As you can see, you have a save option, which I already done, because usually the initial setting is 300 words per minute, which is too fast. 150, 100 is just okay. So I'm gonna click on save. And once I have my text, I say, okay, class, we're going to read a text, and you have to be fast as the text. So it's not anymore me in the center of attention. They are looking at the screen and they have to read what they see. And they say, je fais visiter ma belle ville sur la rue principale. Ici, il y a des magasins de marque, mais aussi artisanaux, and so on. And as you can see, the text is moving forward, and they read like a robot. They are laughing, they are giggling, but you know what? Even if they miss one word or they don't know how to pronounce it, they still try to catch up and they read it. They are very keen on it. They love it. And sometimes they even ask, are we going to read something, with a spreader? And I say, yes, why not? So if you have a text, or if you want them to actually pronounce certain words, just copy and paste. It's as simple as that. Set it on reading. You can, as I said, I'm just going to show you, for instance, I can slow it down. So this is the text. Let's say how it's going to look like. Let's say if I put new setting and I'm going to put on 100. Here we go. As you can see, save. And now it's going to be slower. So let's say maybe your students are not so confident. Here we go. And you see, I slow it down. So you can be reading petit et qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de choix, and so on. So I'm just gonna show you how you copy and paste, so how it looks like when you actually log in to this website. Here we go. Okay, it took me to a different section. Give me a sec, sorry. Not this one. Give me a sec. I hate when it happens during a presentation, it takes you out. But I'm gonna quickly, I know I linked it to my email, so when I quickly draft, I saved it here. Sorry. Come on now, my internet should, oh, here we go. So this is my spreader. Okay, here we go. So you see, when it takes me to the page, you just delete and you copy and paste whatever you want to paste it here. So it's as simple as that. And then you click on spreads, and you can obviously set at what pace you want your class to read. So great for reading, reading out without you actually leading it, or maybe students trying to, read it the way that, you are rolling your eyes invisibly thinking, okay, this is actually not helping anyone, and the rest of the class are really bored listening to someone kind of reading but not pronouncing things. So, okay, I'm gonna move on. So this is another suggestion for reading. Okay, here we go. French whisper. I always tell my students, it isn't Chinese anymore. It is French in my lesson. They love it in primary, but also in secondary. You can easily differentiate it because, in primary, yes, it can be a word, can be day of the week, can be a number, especially, tricky numbers like 16 or 13 or 14, which obviously probably will turn into 4 or 3 after the first 2 passes. But in secondary school, you can give them a sentence, and it could be a key sentence, a key opinion with some connectors, maybe in the past tense. And it's a good invitation to discuss, what I said, what's been changed, or how you pronounce it. Because as we know it, if someone's gonna change je mange into je mange, the whole meaning of the sentence is gonna change. But once they said it many times and they passed it on, you can quickly recap and write, okay, that's what I wrote, that's what you said, how do you read this, how do you read that? So they are speaking, because obviously reading and speaking, they are very closely related. So I do encourage to introduce that. Great element of fun, very interactive and much enjoyed by the students. Picture prompts, again, great for speaking because you can display any picture. And sometimes it's not about knowing what's in the picture, what's in the painting, but actually it's focusing maybe on the objects, maybe on the number of people they can see, maybe on the weather, maybe on colors. So like in this picture, they could describe how many colors they can see, how many objects they could name, and so on. So you can find any, 3-4 pictures, and you can say, okay, talk to your partner, describe one picture, and your partner has to guess which one you've been describing, but we only describing colors, or only describing weather, only describing number of people, or what kind of people they are, boys, girls, and so on. So you can give a very specific focus that they have to be talking about. Beat the Teacher. It's a game which is quite competitive, and they absolutely adore it. So what it is, let's say you teach a lesson about different places in town, and I always say, we're gonna play up to 5 points. Whoever's gonna score 5 points is the winner. So when I say une piscine, you repeat the class, you have to repeat une piscine. I say une église, the class is saying une église. I say une école, you say une école. But when I point out at this and I say une piscine, you must be silent. If someone's just gonna say une, are scoring a point. If the class is gonna be silent, you are scoring a point because I tried to trick you and you didn't fall for my trick. So they absolutely adore it. So I say un stade, they say un stade. Une gare, une gare. Un supermarché, un supermarché. Un supermarché, silence. Oh, you score a point. Well done. It's great because they speak, they repeat, especially if they struggle with maybe certain words. You can obviously make them say it many times. They actually do not think they are speaking or they are repeating, they are thinking about scoring a point. So it becomes a little bit unconscious knowledge. And this is exactly what we want to achieve, because once they become unconscious of what they say or they understand, that means they know it. Just like, if I told them to spell their name, they don't think how to spell it, they know it already. Okay, next one. It's a role play. So obviously role plays, I would strongly encourage it, not only in primary, but as we know, they come handy if you teach GCSE. And I know role plays can be tricky, but I usually display an example of a role play so students can actually just follow and actually read it out as a class with the partners. So actually they practice it, what I wrote, and then I give them a chance to make some changes. And obviously more confident students apply their own sentences and expressions. And I'm going to give you an example of that later in the next few slides. There is actually an example of what I used in my year 9 class a few weeks ago. Fireball recap is when they just have to say something very quickly. They have 5 seconds to react to something. So you throw a toy or you pass an object. And let's say if I say un, you have to say deux, trois, quatre, cinq, six. Or you can make it more challenging. You can say we are saying every third number, so 3 times table or 5 times table. So it's becoming, cross-curricular or a little bit more stimulating or more challenging. Could be finishing of a sentence in a different way. So let's say in secondary, maybe you're gonna say I like to, and if I say j'aime dormir, next person has to say, I don't know, j'aime courir, or j'aime lire, or j'aime chanter, or whatever it is. So they really react quickly, and they, maybe have to have the notes in front of you. They have to react, they have to say it. If they take more than 5 seconds, they didn't score a point. Guess my number, another really, really favorite game of my students. So what it is, so for instance, I say, I'm thinking of a number. So let's imagine I'm teaching numbers from 1 to 60 in year 7, and I'm thinking of a number, and I say, go. Now, what happens here is students start calling numbers. Again, they're not thinking, oh, now I'm going to speak French, I'm going to say this number in French. They actually want to get the number, and they start saying, no, 47, no, 16, no, 28, no, 4, no, it's not 4, it's 4. And so you are correcting, but they're all speaking, they're all trying. So by the time they guessed my number, probably they said 20 different numbers. So it's a nice way to invite them to speak without you saying, now you're going to speak French, now you're going to tell me different numbers. It could be also words, because it could be, I'm thinking of a pet. Which pet is it? I'm thinking about a body part. Which one is it? I'm thinking about a drink. Which one is it? But probably not a good example, because I would be thinking of whiskey and I wouldn't teach them that. Okay, so guess my sentence could be another example where you display a sentence. For instance, yesterday after school, I did my homework and now I thought of the, what follows, but they have to guess it. The funny thing is that I play this game sometimes, and students knew straight away what was to follow. It's funny that in some classes they just kind of knew it. Obviously, I know that maybe number of verbs they know is quite limited, so I'm not going to use something I didn't teach. But sometimes, they actually guess it straight away. And sometimes, you have 10 or 15 different versions. So again, they want to find out, or just notice the accent is missing. There's always something. I'm sure you have the same thing when once you've done your slides, when you teach or you present, you discover mistakes. Okay, so anyway, that's another extension to guessing my number or guessing my words, but also, guess the end of my sentence. So what did I do? What did I think? Or how this sentence could be finished. So for instance, in Italian, maybe domani voglio andare. So tomorrow I want to go where? Okay, so maybe recapping on places in town. With my lips, I'm not talking about any American president here, but it is let's say you teach, let's say days of the week in French. And now I'm gonna tell you day of the week, but you're not gonna hear it. You're gonna see it, and you have to give me my voice back. So the day of the week I'm saying is, and they have to read from my lips that I was saying samedi. Obviously, I make it really, really visible. Let's say which day, or let's say numbers from 1 to 10 in French. Which number is it? So they kind of can hear or see is quatre. But, if they say it wrong, they're still practicing the speaking. So it's also teaching them how to maybe, so when you say cinq, it's more open. When it's un, you drop your, so you're also teaching a little bit of phonics of pronunciation, but also making them speak because they have to say it. And that's the purpose of the game. Dictation, dictation is very important. I know it was abandoned for many years. It's not part of the current GCSE, but will be part of the new one. Why it is useful? Because, students can be dictating things to each other, whether they are single words. So it can be a quick whiteboard practice where in primary you can say, okay, can you dictate 3 words from the last lesson to your partner, and then you swap. So they are practicing spelling, but by the time they have to say it to their partner because, they paired up. You can be working with those students who maybe don't have this confidence, or you can go through the words, you display it in words, you read it as a class, so you have 2-minute practice, so everyone knows how to say those 10 words, and then they select 3 and they dictate it to the partner. So actually they say it again, so it's a speaking practice, they speak in the target language. In secondary school, obviously there can be sentences where again, there's a drill, they read those sentences, we explain it, and then they dictate it and they interact each other. Again, they speak and they write and they swap. So this target language is really happening in the lesson. So I strongly encourage you to apply more dictation, because it's a kind of a matrix where they practice writing, but also speaking. So there are 2 things, and you can easily also, squeeze in grammar, those past tenses, especially with the accents, do you know how to spell it? Do you have to read it? Memorize a sentence is where you display a sentence and it's disappearing after 10 seconds, and then they have to repeat it. So what it is, let's say there is a sentence, and once it's disappeared, of course, some of them will put their hands up. So maybe with the first 2 sentences, you select those hands up. If not, you say no hands up again. I'm gonna ask 3 of you to repeat. We can have 3 different versions. If they agree, it's great, but still you expect 3 students to say it in the target language. Mind reader, it is an activity where they have to guess the sentence you are thinking about. So it's very similar to what I said before, but this time you actually, they can see all the options. So they moved from blue to black, from black to red, and then they can only get to green section once they guessed all the other colors. So let me explain it. So when I say il, so for instance, I thought of a sentence and I'm saying, telling my class, okay, guys, I made up a sentence in my head, and now you have to read my mind and tell me what sentence I've been thinking about. So I say the class is reading il, I'm pointing out il, I say non. So they have to move to elle. I say non. Je, oui. So I say oui, now they can move to the black section. So je mange, I say non. So it must be je prends, oui. So now they can move to the red section. Je prends une poire, oui. Now they can move to the violet section. Je prends une poire et bois, and so on. Once they guess my sentence, they can write it down, they can translate it, and then they can work with the partner. So now it's not me modeling anymore. Actually, students interact in the target language with the partner. And once they thought about, they write it down, they translate it, and they swap. So actually in 5 minutes of your lesson is happening with your students being, teachers, being independent, speaking. You only walk around and you spy if no one is, planning their Halloween costume or what to buy for Christmas. Translated, it is where you display something and they just translate it in the real time. So what it means is you, just like when we use Spreader and they had to read it, I always say when you do a translation, when you a professional translator, and I did it many, many years ago. So very often when I had training at university, they would play a text in French and we had to repeat the same text with a delay, but also hearing what we kind of were missing as we were saying the text, because there's always a few seconds delay. So what I do is I say something very slowly. So for instance, I would say j'aime aller en vacances au bord de la mer. And what they have to do, they have to repeat after me with a few second delay, but also talking at the same time. So again, they don't realize I make them speak because I say, like, you are a professional translator, but you are translating from French to French. You just have to follow what I'm saying. You don't want to lose, the track. And you can be reading a text, but you can be just making up sentences, but actually they're quite engaged. And again, once they know how this works, they can be working with their partner. Another way of checking their understanding. So this is, for instance, from my year 7 lesson last week. So I was actually teaching how to conjugate ER verbs in French. And they wrote those sentences. And as you can see, we were checking the ending of those verbs, if they apply the right ending. But when we were checking the answers, instead of me reading it in French, and obviously I made them read it in French anyway, but I was checking for understanding, and I thought I want them to say those words, those verbs in the target language more. I was greedy. So I was saying, okay, guys, I call out in English, you say it in French. So I was saying, you like, and they say, tu aimes, they dance, elle danse, he speaks. Il parle. So as you can see, it wasn't me saying, how do you say, what is il parle? And they would be speaking English. It was me saying saying in English, they were saying in French. We can be very tricky with that because once you have those verbs, you could even make it more challenging and say, okay, super challenge, how you gonna say she speaks? So can they actually look at sentence 2 and actually change it il to elle? Or can you say he is eating? And so on. So there are lots of other ways where you can teach even more on the top of checking your answers. Mr. Grumpy, it's a game where they have to say the opposite. So you display a sentence or you say a sentence. So if I say, for instance, je suis sportive, they have to say always the opposite, je ne suis pas sportive. And I know the negatives, especially in French, can be a little bit tricky because of the sandwich. So if I say j'aime le sport, je n'aime pas le sport. So it's a quick game. If I say something, you say the opposite. So I say c'est plus grand, you can say c'est plus petit. C'est beau, c'est moche, and so on. Okay, or ce n'est pas beau. Either way, but they just have to say the opposite. So it's a nice uncomplicated game. So coming back to role play, which I mentioned before. So to make my students speak in the target language when we do a role play. So this is like a typical GCSE role play. Actually, we did it in year 9 because they were learning how to buy a ticket for the holidays. So those are the bullet points. And I told them those are the questions related to those bullet points. Can you work out which ones goes with what? So it was a little bit of a thinking time. We read it together. So when they were discussing, they kind of knew how to pronounce those sentences. And after that, I displayed the actual questions. So as you can see from the previous slides, they had already some answers and some questions, like 4 and 5 they had to ask. Here, they had the questions that their teacher would ask if it was at an exam or interview situation. And now they had to put it together. Obviously, as they were putting it together, they had to read those sentences in the target language. There was a little bit of speaking. And once they've put it together, obviously they had paired practice. And then, we had shared practice where, again, I would select, 2 people who didn't work together. So they knew they had to practice because I would select 6 different students to show me how well they've done. Usually I would demonstrate it with someone confident. So to kind of give them confidence, she can or he can do it. So, listen how it has to be done once again. And then I would select less confident students to have a presentation. Then the next one, they love this game. It's, as you can see, this is color coded. So the sentences in black, they have, you decide, they score 1 point, sentences in blue 2 points, or sentences in red 3 points, or any other way, up to your judgment. And what they have to do, they have to read the sentence in the target language and translate it correctly. And then they're scoring points accordingly. So what I do, for instance, I would, to demonstrate, I would select someone who wants to translate the sentence. I would always match the points. So let's say if a student selected sentence worth 2 points, I wouldn't try to beat them in my presentation. And then I would say, play it with your partner. The good thing is, because they have to read it in French first and then translate it, and obviously they want to be the partner, there are lots of questions being asked. There are questions asked about how do I pronounce it, or what does this word mean? So actually really makes them reflect, okay, do you know the meaning of the sentence? Is the translation correct? And if you're going to display the same grid during 2 or 3 lessons in a row, believe me, they're going to start mastering those expressions, or they're going to start noticing that certain things mean this, or this is a past tense, this is a future tense, and so on. And this is exactly what we want them to achieve. So they like this game, which is quite competitive. If you don't want to be applying different number of points, you can just say, can you go this row? Can you go horizontally? Can you go diagonally? So, it can be knots and crosses system. Again, it's up to you, but just give you an idea how you can make them speak and pronounce it in many different ways. So it looks like fun, not like, okay, now we're going to read or speak in French or Spanish, whichever language you teach. Another one could be add a caption, where you give your students a few minutes, probably a minute, I would say a minute, a whiteboard, and they have to choose a sentence, picture, and choose a sentence that, this person or this cat is thinking about, or this person is saying, or any comment about the picture. And again, once they had the 60 seconds thinking time, they have to read out the sentences. And as they read out the sentences, sometimes they say funny things, sometimes they say silly things, and it's more likely your class will be listening. There will be a bit of giggle and a bit of discussion. Oh, that's what it means. That's how you say it. But actually, they produce language in a spontaneous manner because you give them, an invitation. And, you could use pictures of, their idols, or maybe, it can be a funny picture, or can be a famous picture of a famous person. And that will stimulate, some reactions, and they're going to use some expressions that maybe normally they didn't use. So it's a nice invitation to make them speak. So thank you very much for listening. I hope the ideas I presented today will make your students speak more in the target language. As I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me via my Facebook page, Teach, Think, Thrive. I will publish some more ideas in the next few weeks, so please check it out. I'm just gonna quickly click on the chat option just to quickly. Okay, thank you very much for all your thank yous. And if you are attending any other sessions, have a great day. And it was a pleasure presenting my ideas to you. So grazie mille. Thank you, everyone. And contact. Oh, yes, someone is asking, so it's going really fast. I'm gonna go to the slide. So the page I was telling you about is called the Facebook page. It's called, I'm gonna quickly display it here. It is called, here we go. Sorry. Facebook page is Think, Teach, Thrive. Okay, so this is let me see if I could, if I minimize it, if I could put it in the, sorry, here we go. If I could put it in the comment section, but if I don't, you will be able to find it. No, I can't now. Yeah, so sorry. Oh, thank you, Chris. You managed to do it. Great. So if you just click on the link published by Chris, my computer seems to have frozen now. And otherwise, probably you can find it via the search tool on Facebook. But thank you so much, everyone. You've been a great audience, and please try some ideas. You know, some will work, some won't. But I mean, it's fun actually to see your students interacting and actually enjoying some of those ideas. So thank you so much. Have a great Saturday, great weekend, and enjoy the rest of the sessions today and tomorrow. I won't be sharing slides, but I'll be sharing those ideas on my Facebook page. So because of some restrictions when it comes to pictures, which are on the slides, I'm not able to publish all the links, but I will publish some ideas in the next few days. So I expect those ideas to be published on my Facebook page. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Chris, for your help with putting the link. Okay, thanks, everyone. I'll be finishing here, and have an amazing weekend. Yes, you're right, Catherine. Those sessions will be available, so you can play it and you can revisit some parts of the presentation in the next few weeks. So that's a good reminder. Perfect. Thanks, everyone.